Hey all, so this video is going to be looking at a segment of B3.2, which addresses xylem and phloem. This is a transport chapter. And so we're looking at how plants are adapted to move fluids. And we're going to be looking at page 278 to 82 and then 289 to 92. And we want to be thinking about form and function and how those structures allow for water as well as sucrose, glucose molecules to be moved through plants. So the first tube we need to know about is xylem, and xylem is going to move water through a plant. So if water was put in a tube and suction was applied to that tube, it would only reach up to 10 meters, but trees can grow up to 100 meters. So what's going on there? Firstly, it has to do with the structure of the xylem and hydrogen bonding that occurs between the water and the xylem. Additionally, it relates to pressure from the roots, pushing water up and pulling from the stomata, which are holes in the leaf that create a pressure reduction at the leaf. This is called transpiration. And this is how water moves through the plant. Cohesion and adhesion of water in the xylem pull it along also. And then negative water potential in the root draws water into the root, and that pushes water up the plant. So water moves out of the xylem towards the stomata, but cellulose, which is hydrophilic, creates hydrogen bonds through adhesion, and that's going to create capillary action, which is like a kind of crawling up of the water along the cellulose. If there is a continuous column of water, transpiration pull and cohesion and adhesion will move water to the top of the tree. If there is low pressure in the xylem for some reason, it can cause a break in the water stream. This is called cavitation. This sometimes happens in the winter time, but water coming in from the roots does allow for that hole in the water column to be fixed. So the structure of xylem tubes, they are designed to withstand low pressures inside the tube without collapsing. So the arrangement of them are end-to-end cells, but these are non-living cells and the cytoplasm is absent. And so because they are non-living, they don't have chloroplasts, they don't have mitochondria, they don't have organelles at all. The walls, in order to prevent collapsing, are thickened with spiral lignin. Lignin is a type of polysaccharide, and lignin is impermeable to water, even though in xylem there are tiny holes. These are called pits where water can pass. And this is because water is moving from the xylem into the phloem, which is the other tube, and from the phloem back into the xylem. The water holes in adult plants are called pits. And they're going to be more extensive than they would be in younger plants. Transport in xylem, because it doesn't have any organelles or mitochondria, is a passive process. So without transpiration lost through the leaves, there is no negative pressure pulling the water up. So water wouldn't be able to get into the roots and from the roots up to the top of the tree. So if we are looking at the structure of a root or a leaf, a root or a stem, we can see that there are two tubes, the xylem tubes and the phloem tubes, but they're going to look different in the roots cross-section than they would in the stem cross-section. So dicotyledonous plants are plants that have two seed leaves when they sprout, and these include peas, sunflowers, oaks, and most flowering plants. And if we're only thinking about dicots. There are such things as monocots, which are, for example, corn, and their structure in their cross-section of roots and stems looks different, but we're only focused on dicots. So the structure of the stem and the root looks different. And so xylem here is on the inside, and it's for transporting water. And then if we look at the root here, these big tubes here that make this little X are the xylem tubes in the root. Phloem is the tube that's going to transport sucroses throughout the plant, and it's on the outside edge here. and it's on the outside edge here. So these smaller holes around the xylem are the phloem. Then there's the cambium, and the cambium produces more xylem and phloem. So this is actually stem cell tissue that's going to grow to create more xylem and phloem tissue. The epidermis, which provides waterproofing and protection. So that's the outside edge here, and it would be the outside edge here also. The cortex provides support, and it also is going to photosynthesize. And obviously in the roots, it's not photosynthesizing, but it is providing support. And then the pith is going to be the bulking of the stem. And so these are dead tissues made up of cellulose. So when water is moving in from the roots through into the xylem, if transpiration is not happening, water gets into the roots by root pressure. So the way that that happens is root cells are going to be using ATP to pump ions out of the soil into the root hairs. And because you're going to end up with a high concentration of ions in the root hairs, then through osmosis, water is going to stream into the roots. And there's no limit to how much root pressure can be created. It's solely generated by the concentration of ions that the plant is able to generate. So then looking at phloem here, so this is the xylem tube, which transports water, and then phloem is going to be transporting sucrose, amino acids, other organic molecules, and it's going from a source like leaves where sucrose is being made to a storage, which is called a sink, like roots. And it can travel in either direction in the phloem tube, but it has to be traveling in one direction only. It can't travel in both directions at the same time. So the way that phloem tubes develop here are that sieve tubes develop from columns of adjacent cells, and they're connected via these sieve tube plates that have holes in them. There are almost no organelles in the tubes, but there are cell membranes which can do active transport for loading and unloading sucrose. And so they're going to work with these other cells called companion cells, and the companion cells are going to pump the sucrose into the phloem via the membrane. ATP is made by mitochondria in the companion cells, and they are connected to the phloem cells via plasmodesmata, which are a type of cytoplasmic connection. And what ends up happening is a high concentrate of solute is going to then pull water out of the xylem, creating a high pressure zone up here where there was a lot of solute, and pushing it down towards the roots. And then once it gets to the roots, it's going to be unloaded into, let's say, root cells. And what's going to end up happening once there is no more solute in the phloem is that the water will return to the xylem. So to summarize, these tubes here, by the way, are xylem tubes. Xylem moves water through plants via negative pressure from transpiration combined with adhesion and cohesion, and roots can pump water into cells that will go to the xylem. Phloem is going to move sucrose and organic material multidirectionally through positive pressure generated by osmosis. And then dicot stems and root cross sections look different. All right, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.